Have you ever received a message so terrifying that ignoring it could have destroyed everything you spent your entire life building? I did. One vibration, 9 words. Don't finish dinner. Leave now. Trust no one. At first I laughed. By sunrise, my family's name was splashed across every local news station. My closest business partner had vanished. And the son I trusted with my legacy was standing in handcuffs. If you've ever wondered what true betrayal feels like, and what happens when a father refuses to let evil win, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and stay until the end. This isn't just a revenge story. It's a lesson about trust, and the price people pay when they mistake kindness for weakness. My name is Ethan Carter. At 60 years old, I believed I'd seen every kind of problem life could invent. I had survived recessions, factory fires, lawsuits, the death of my own father. Nothing had ever broken me. For 30 years, I had built Carter Industrial Systems from an empty warehouse into one of the largest steel suppliers in the state. Every truck that carried my company's logo represented years of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. Success didn't arrive overnight. It arrived one honest day at a time. That's why family dinners meant everything to me. Every Sunday evening, no matter how busy life became, my wife Margaret, my son Ryan, and his wife Olivia gathered around our old oak dining table. No phones, no business, just family. That night, Margaret had cooked my favorite meal, slow-roasted beef, with mashed potatoes and homemade gravy. She only made it for celebrations, or when she sensed someone needed comfort. I didn't know which one this dinner was supposed to be. Ryan looked unusually cheerful, too cheerful. He kept talking about an incredible logistics company that had supposedly saved the business hundreds of thousands of dollars. His excitement felt rehearsed. Olivia barely touched her food. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes. Every few seconds she glanced toward Ryan before quickly looking away. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. Not with logic. With instinct. 30 years in business teaches you to recognize silence louder than words. Then, my phone vibrated beneath the table. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I looked down. My heartbeat stopped. Leave immediately. Don't tell Ryan. You're being watched. Every muscle in my body tightened. Who knew I was here? Why specifically Ryan? Across the table, Margaret smiled while pouring another glass of iced tea, completely unaware that my world had just shifted beneath my feet. Ryan laughed at something I'd barely heard. Olivia's fork froze halfway to her mouth. For just a fraction of a second, our eyes met. She looked terrified. And then, almost invisibly, she gave me the smallest nod, as if silently begging go. The moment I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face like a bucket of ice water. Behind me, I could still hear laughter drifting from the dining room. Margaret was probably telling one of her old stories, and Ryan's booming laugh echoed through the house, the same laugh I'd heard since he was a little boy riding on my shoulders at the county fair. But tonight, it didn't sound the same. I walked toward my truck without looking back. Every instinct I had developed over 3 decades in business screamed that something was terribly wrong. Before I even reached the driver's door, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Drive 3 blocks east. Park beside the old library. Come alone. No explanation. No signature. Just another command. For a long moment, I stared at the glowing screen. Was this some elaborate prank? An attempted robbery? Or was someone genuinely trying to save me? The uncertainty was worse than the fear itself. I climbed into the truck and started the engine. As I pulled away from the house, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Through the dining room window, Margaret smiled while clearing plates. Ryan leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Olivia wasn't eating. She was watching the driveway, watching me leave. And when she realized I had actually gone, she quietly closed her eyes, as if she'd been holding her breath all evening. 5 minutes later, I parked beside the abandoned public library. The building had been empty for years. Its broken windows reflected the pale glow of a flickering streetlight. The neighborhood was silent. Too silent. I checked every mirror. Nothing. Then headlights appeared behind me. A gray sedan rolled slowly into the parking lot before stopping several spaces away. The driver's door opened. My heart nearly stopped. It was Olivia. She hurried toward my truck, constantly looking over her shoulder. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped a thick manila envelope. I rolled down the window. Olivia, what on earth is going on? She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I'm sorry, she whispered. So sorry. For what? For waiting this long. Tears filled her eyes. I kept telling myself I was wrong. I wanted to believe I was wrong. My pulse quickened. Wrong about what? She handed me the envelope. Inside were copies of invoices, bank transfers, shipping records, and handwritten notes connected with my company. At first glance, everything looked normal. Then I noticed something impossible. Millions of dollars in payments, shipments that never existed, vendor contracts I'd never approved. The signatures looked authentic. Except they weren't mine. They've been stealing from you, Olivia whispered. For almost 2 years. I looked up at her, unable to speak. Who? She swallowed hard. My husband. The words barely escaped her lips, and someone inside your company. Every sound around us seemed to disappear. Ryan? My son? No. Impossible. I had raised him better than that. Seeing the disbelief on my face, Olivia's voice cracked. I didn't want to believe it either. But tomorrow morning federal investigators are executing search warrants. They think you're involved. The world tilted beneath me. 30 years of honest work, everything I'd built, everything my family depended on, was about to collapse. And someone I trusted had carefully arranged for me to take the blame. I stared at the papers in my lap, but the words had stopped making sense. Wire transfers, fake invoices, vendor payments, account numbers. Everything looked official. Everything carried my company's name. Yet none of it belonged there. I slowly looked up at Olivia. If this is true, I whispered, why come to me now? Her shoulders slumped as though she'd been carrying the weight of the world alone. Because tonight was the point of no return. She wiped away a tear before continuing. I work in financial compliance. 3 weeks ago I noticed unusual transactions connected to one of your commercial accounts. At first I assumed it was a reporting error. She laughed bitterly. I wanted it to be a reporting error, but every time I dug deeper, the evidence became worse. I clenched my jaw. And Ryan? She looked away. I confronted him. My stomach tightened. He denied everything. Then he admitted just enough to convince me to stop asking questions. What did he say? He claimed it was temporary. He said a business associate had convinced him to approve a few transactions to solve a cash flow problem. She paused. I wanted to believe him, but the transfers kept growing. Hundreds of thousands became millions. And then, she swallowed hard. I found offshore accounts. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Offshore accounts. This wasn't someone cutting corners. This was organized fraud. For the first time in 30 years, I felt truly helpless. I had spent my life teaching my son that your reputation was worth more than money. So how had we ended up here? My phone rang. Margaret. I couldn't answer. Not yet. How could I explain that our peaceful family dinner had turned into the worst night of our lives? I silenced the phone. Olivia noticed. She doesn't know, does she? I slowly shook my head. No, and I'd like to keep it that way, at least until I know the whole truth. She nodded. There's something else. The fear in her voice immediately caught my attention. What? The investigators aren't only looking at Ryan. They're looking at you. I frowned. Me? Every authorization carries your company's approval. From the outside, it looks like you created the entire operation. A cold chill ran down my spine. Someone hadn't simply stolen my business. They had built an escape plan, and I was the sacrifice. Just then, headlights swept across the empty parking lot. Another vehicle. Black SUV. It slowed as it passed us. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us breathed. The SUV continued toward the exit, then stopped. Its brake lights glowed red in the darkness. The driver's door opened. A tall man stepped out. Even from this distance I recognized him. Victor Lang. The logistics executive Ryan had praised all through dinner. The man whose handshake had made my skin crawl the first time we met. Victor looked directly toward my truck. He wasn't surprised to see me. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. The smile of someone who believed he was already in control. He raised 2 fingers in a casual wave, before climbing back into the SUV and driving away. Olivia's face turned white. He knows. She whispered the words as though saying them louder would make them real. He knows I told you. I watched the tail lights disappear into the night. No, I said quietly. He knows something much worse. I folded the documents, started my truck and looked straight ahead. He knows the game has changed. For the first time that evening, I wasn't thinking about surviving the betrayal. I was thinking about ending it. I didn't drive home. Instead, I pulled into the empty lot behind Carter Industrial, killed the engine, and sat in the darkness with Olivia beside me. The dashboard clock read 9:47 p.m. Less than 3 hours earlier, I'd been carving roast beef and arguing with my son about freight rates. Now I was holding evidence that could send him to federal prison. Olivia broke the silence first. If the investigators execute the warrants tonight, Victor will try to clean up whatever he can. I looked at the stack of documents again. Then we make sure he can't. The words surprised even me. I had spent my whole life solving problems with contracts, negotiations, and hard work. But this wasn't a business dispute anymore. It was a war being fought with bank records and lies. I called my attorney, Daniel Mercer, a former federal prosecutor who answered on the second ring. Ethan, it's late. It's about Ryan. And I think my CFO is involved. By the time I finished explaining, Mercer's voice had lost every trace of sleepiness. Listen carefully, he said. Do not call anyone from the company. Do not confront Victor. Do not go home yet. I'm contacting financial crimes. If what Olivia found is legitimate, the smartest thing you can do is cooperate before they come looking for you. Before they come looking for you. The phrase landed like a stone in my stomach. Olivia stared out the windshield. I'm sorry. For what? For being the one who had to tell you. I shook my head. You may have just saved my life. An hour later, Mercer called back. The FBI is already moving on Victor's offices. They want to meet tonight. Where? My office. Bring Olivia and every document you have. As we drove downtown, rain began to fall, turning the streets into blurred ribbons of light. Olivia sat rigidly in the passenger seat, clutching the envelope to her chest. You're scared, I said. I'm terrified. Of Victor? She hesitated. Of what happens when Ryan realizes I chose the truth over him. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. If he's innocent, the truth will help him. If he's guilty, hiding it would destroy both of you. She nodded, but the tears in her eyes told me the distinction offered little comfort. Mercer's office occupied the top floor of a glass tower overlooking the river. When we arrived, 2 people were already waiting in the conference room. Mercer and a woman in a dark suit with a silver FBI badge clipped to her belt. Mr. Carter, she said. Standing, I'm Special Agent Lena Ortiz, Financial Crimes Division. Her handshake was firm, efficient, and completely unlike Victor Lang's lingering grip. Ortiz spread the documents across the table, studying them for several minutes without speaking. Finally, she looked up. These transfers are real. The room seemed to shrink around me. Can you prove who authorized them? I asked. She slid one page toward me and tapped a line near the bottom. Every transaction has a secondary override code. We traced it an hour ago. I read the identifier twice before the meaning fully registered. It belonged to Monica Reeves, my CFO, my partner of 20 years, the woman who had helped build Carter Industrial from a rented warehouse. The blood drained from my face. Olivia whispered, "Oh my God." Agent Ortiz met my eyes. "Mr. Carter, we believe Monica Reeves has been facilitating this scheme for at least 3 years. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. Then Mercer spoke quietly. Ethan, this is the moment you decide whether you're a witness or a target. I looked at Monica's code on the page, and the last pieces of blind trust inside me finally shattered. Tell me what you need, I said. Agent Ortiz closed the file. Tomorrow morning, Ms. Reeves thinks she's coming to a routine executive meeting. A faint, cold smile touched her lips. She has no idea we'll be waiting for her. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, another memory surfaced. Monica celebrating our biggest contracts. Monica sitting beside my wife at company Christmas parties. Monica teaching Ryan how to read financial statements during his college summers. 20 years of trust, 20 years of loyalty. Or so I believed. Now every memory felt poisoned. At 7:15 the next morning, I walked into Carter Industrial earlier than anyone else. The familiar smell of steel, machine oil, and fresh-cut metal usually gave me comfort. Today, it only reminded me what was at stake. 40 employees depended on this company. 40 families trusted my name. I wasn't about to let one person's greed destroy everything we'd built. Daniel Mercer was already waiting in my office. "So is the FBI," he said quietly. I nodded. "Where?" "Conference room." Hidden cameras had been installed overnight. Audio recorders were already running. Agent Lena Ortiz had one instruction from me. Act exactly like it's a normal meeting. At precisely 8:30, Monica knocked once before walking into my office carrying her usual leather portfolio. She smiled, the same confident smile I'd seen thousands of times. "Ethan, you wanted to see me?" I did. She sat down without hesitation. "You look tired," she said. "Long night?" "You could say that." She laughed softly. "We've all had long weeks." For a moment, neither of us spoke. I studied her face, searching for guilt, regret, anything. I found nothing. Only confidence. The confidence of someone who believed they had already won. "I have a question," I finally said. "Shoot, what do you know about Victor Lang?" For the first time, her smile faltered, only for a heartbeat. Then it returned. "Our logistics partner? What about him?" I slid a folder across the desk. Inside were copies of fraudulent invoices, offshore transfers, false shipping manifests. She glanced at the papers, then calmly closed the folder. "I assume there's an explanation. I was hoping you'd give me one." She leaned back. "Ethan, I've been with you for 20 years. You trust me." "I do." "Then trust me now." Those words hit harder than I expected. Trust me. After everything she'd done, she still wanted trust. I slowly stood. "You know what hurts the most?" She looked confused. "It isn't the money. It isn't the investigation. It isn't even the possibility that my company may never fully recover. It's that I treated you like family. I defended you. I celebrated your victories. My wife considered you her closest friend. My son called you his mentor. And all that time you were using us." For the first time, real emotion crossed Monica's face, not guilt. "Fear, Ethan. You don't understand." "No," I replied quietly. "I understand perfectly. You found my son's weakness. You found my company's blind spot. And you turned both into your personal ATM." Her breathing became uneven. "Victor wasn't someone you simply walked away from." She whispered. "I got trapped. You could have come to me. I couldn't. You didn't." Silence, heavy, painful, final. I walked to the office door, placed my hand on the handle, then opened it. Agent Lena Ortiz entered first. 2 FBI agents followed behind her. Monica's eyes widened. She slowly stood from her chair. "Ethan." Her voice trembled. "What have you done?" I looked directly into her eyes. "The one thing you never expected. I stopped trusting you." Agent Ortiz stepped forward. "Monica Reeves, you're under arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and financial racketeering." One of the agents gently took her portfolio. Another secured her wrists. She looked at me one last time. "You ruined my life." I shook my head. "No, you ruined your own. As for me, I just made sure the truth finally caught up with you." As the agents escorted Monica through the office, every employee on the production floor stopped working. Machines fell silent. Conversations ended. No one spoke. They simply watched the woman they had trusted for decades walk past them in handcuffs. But I wasn't watching Monica anymore. I was looking out the window. Because across the parking lot, a black SUV had just pulled in. Victor Lang stepped out. He looked toward the front entrance, then saw the FBI vehicles. The confidence vanished from his face. He spun around, jumped back into the SUV, and slammed the accelerator. Agent Ortiz saw it too. She grabbed her radio. "Suspect is fleeing." 3 unmarked vehicles roared to life. Tires screamed across the pavement. Victor had made one fatal mistake. He thought he was escaping. He had no idea. The hunt had only just begun. The moment Victor Lang's black SUV shot out of the Carter Industrial parking lot, Agent Lena Ortiz was already reaching for her radio. "All units, suspect is fleeing eastbound on Industrial Avenue. Black Cadillac Escalade. Plates confirmed. Do not lose him." Within seconds, 3 unmarked FBI vehicles exploded out of the lot, their engines roaring to life. I watched them disappear around the corner. For a brief moment, silence settled over the building. Every employee stood frozen. No one returned to work. No one spoke. They had just witnessed the downfall of the woman they had trusted for 20 years. Daniel Mercer stepped beside me. "This isn't over." I nodded. "I know." He looked toward the empty parking lot. "Victor knows Monica is talking, and desperate people make desperate mistakes." 2 hours later, My phone rang. Agent Ortiz. We caught him. I closed my eyes. Where? He tried crossing the state line. He didn't make it. A wave of relief washed over me, but it wasn't satisfaction. Not yet. Victor's arrest didn't erase what had happened. It didn't restore my son's reputation. It didn't repair the trust my family had lost. It only meant the man responsible would finally have to answer for his choices. That afternoon, Ryan arrived at my office. He looked exhausted. His beard had grown unevenly over the past few days, and the confidence that once filled every room he entered had completely vanished. Dad, his voice barely carried across the room. I need to tell you everything. I remained standing. I'm listening. He stared at the floor. It started with gambling. I thought I could win back what I'd lost. When I couldn't, Victor offered help. I didn't interrupt. He introduced me to Monica. They both said it wasn't stealing. They called it temporary accounting adjustments. They promised no one would ever get hurt. His eyes filled with tears. I believed them. You signed every document? He nodded slowly. At first I didn't even read them. They told me they were routine approvals. And later, I knew. The single word hit harder than every other sentence he'd spoken. You knew. He covered his face. I kept telling myself I'd stop after the next payment, then after the next, and then I couldn't get out. For several minutes neither of us spoke. Finally I asked the question that had haunted me since the mysterious text message. Why didn't you come to me? Ryan's shoulders began shaking. Because I was ashamed. I thought you'd never forgive me. I walked to the window overlooking the factory floor. 40 employees continued their work below. People who had trusted my leadership. People whose livelihoods depended on this company surviving. Without turning around, I spoke quietly. Ryan, when you were 12 years old, you accidentally backed my pickup into the garage. You remember what happened? A faint smile appeared through his tears. You made me help fix it. I did. But did I stop loving you? He slowly shook his head. No, you were afraid of disappointing me. I wasn't disappointed because you made a mistake. I was disappointed because you tried to hide it. Silence. Then I turned to face him. The gambling wasn't what destroyed us. The lies did. Ryan collapsed into the chair across from my desk. I'll cooperate. I'll tell investigators everything. I'll testify. I'll accept whatever happens. I studied him carefully. For the first time since this nightmare had begun, I believed him, not because he was my son, because he had finally stopped making excuses. 3 weeks later, federal prosecutors announced multiple indictments against Victor Lang, Monica Reeves, and several members of the laundering network. Ryan signed a full cooperation agreement. His testimony became the key that unlocked years of hidden fraud. Every fake invoice, every shell company, every illegal transfer, it all came crashing down. Reporters called it one of the largest financial crime investigations in the region's history. The headlines praised the FBI. They praised the prosecutors. They praised the whistleblower. But they never mentioned the moment that truly changed everything. A father receiving a mysterious text message during a family dinner and choosing to stand up instead of ignoring it. I thought the nightmare was finally ending. I was wrong. Because 1 week later, Daniel Mercer walked into my office carrying a thin brown envelope. His face was more serious than I had ever seen it. Ethan, you need to read this. I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. No return address. No signature. Only one chilling sentence written across the page. You destroyed our operation. Now we'll destroy your family. The envelope remained in my hands long after Daniel Mercer left my office. One sentence. 9 words. You destroyed our operation. Now we'll destroy your family. There was no signature, no fingerprints, no return address, just a threat. I folded the letter carefully and looked out over the factory floor. The machines continued humming. Forklifts moved steel across polished concrete. Employees laughed during their lunch break. Life looked normal. But I knew better. People like Victor Lang never worked alone. When one part of a criminal network falls, someone else always tries to pick up the pieces. Agent Lena Ortiz wasn't surprised when I showed her the letter. She read it twice before placing it inside an evidence bag. We expected something like this. You did? She nodded. Organizations built on intimidation don't simply disappear. They lash out. They want witnesses to regret cooperating. I crossed my arms. So what now? For now, we protect your family. Within 24 hours, extra patrols drove past our neighborhood. Margaret hated every minute of it. I feel like we're prisoners in our own home. I gently took her hand. No, we're survivors. There's a difference. Ryan's cooperation proved even more valuable than prosecutors had imagined. He handed investigators encrypted emails, hidden accounting files, voice recordings, and detailed explanations of how Monica and Victor had manipulated legitimate businesses for years. Each interview uncovered another layer of the organization. Another shell company. Another fraudulent account. Another victim. By the time the investigation ended, dozens of executives had come forward with stories nearly identical to ours. The network hadn't just stolen money, it had stolen trust. Months later, the courtroom was completely full. Journalists packed every available seat. Business owners filled the gallery. Former employees waited quietly in the back. Victor Lang entered wearing an expensive suit that could no longer hide the fear in his eyes. Monica Reeves followed shortly afterward. She looked nothing like the confident executive who had once walked through my office. Her shoulders were lowered, her face pale. She avoided looking in my direction. The judge spent nearly an hour reviewing the evidence. Every forged contract, every fake shipment, every fraudulent transfer, every life damaged by greed. Then came the sentences. Victor Lang received decades in federal prison for leading the criminal enterprise. Monica Reeves was sentenced to years behind bars, ordered to repay millions in restitution, and permanently barred from serving as a corporate officer. Neither one said a word as deputies led them away. I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt something quieter. Closure. Because revenge hadn't come from yelling. It hadn't come from violence. It came from the truth. The truth had done what anger never could. It had exposed every lie. Ryan's case came several months later. His cooperation changed everything. The judge acknowledged his role in exposing the larger criminal operation, but also reminded him that good intentions after getting caught could never erase bad decisions. He received a reduced sentence. Not freedom. Not complete forgiveness. Justice. When the hearing ended, Ryan turned toward me. I'm sorry, Dad. I know. Do you think, one day, you'll trust me again? I looked at my son for a long moment. You'll always be my son. Love isn't something you have to earn. But trust, I paused. Trust is built one honest decision at a time. He nodded. For the first time in years, there were no excuses in his eyes. Only acceptance. And that was the beginning of healing. A year later, Carter Industrial stood stronger than ever. We rebuilt every financial safeguard. Independent audits became standard. Every major transaction required multiple approvals. No single person would ever again hold enough power to destroy everything we'd built. As for Margaret, she still makes Sunday dinners. The only difference is this. Nobody leaves the table with secrets anymore. Sometimes I think back to that mysterious text message. I still don't know what would have happened if I'd ignored it. Maybe I'd have been arrested. Maybe my company would have collapsed. Maybe my family would never have recovered. But I do know one thing. The greatest revenge isn't watching your enemies fall. It's refusing to fall with them. And that's exactly what we did. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unforgettable revenge story. Now tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you had received that mysterious text message during dinner? Would you have ignored it or walked away? Until next time, remember, the strongest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's letting the truth expose those who believed they'd never be caught.